Father Clifton. I'm not really, it is true I am a Catholic priest, but I'm not really here to talk in my capacity as a theologian or anything like that, but to talk a little bit about family life, okay, dating life, marriage, that sort of thing. And you might say, well, what would a Catholic priest know about marriage and family life if, we never get married? And well, I always tell people I did grow up in a family, so I do have that experience. But also, a great deal of what a priest does throughout the day, depending on where they're at and what particular ministry they're in, is in fact counseling families and counseling people going through certain difficulties. So we end up learning quite a bit that can be very helpful in terms of family life. And of course, our study prepared us as well as study camp for that kind of a situation. So. Just a little bit about me. I'm from San Luis Obispo, and in fact, I saw these up here. They say slow 1, slow 2, slow 3. I thought I just see that, and I think San Luis Obispo. So I don't know. But went to all public schools, public elementary through high school. Went to Cal actually for my undergrad, and studied religious studies with an emphasis in Christianity, and then went to the seminary. Ended up going to 3 seminaries in California, Colorado, and Oregon. And ended up with a master's in divinity, which is the standard ministerial degree here in the U.S., and then a master of arts in theology, and then a Roman degree. Even though I didn't study in Rome, we have a degree program that's connected with the San Anselmo University in Rome. So I got what's called a baccalaureate in sacred theology. So it takes a long time to get all that, but that's all right. And so I've been a priest here for 4 years. I was the parochial vicar, which is a fancy way of saying not the boss, over at Madonna del Sasso Church right here over on Laurel. And then for the last year, I've been down at Holy Trinity Church in Greenfield. So it's a good pleasure to be here with you today. And I know it's a long class. I hope that what we talk about is interesting enough that you won't feel bored by what I'm telling you. And certainly I think what I'm going to share with you, you'll find a lot of application with your life, even though, again, we're not talking about things that are strictly religious. It's just, obviously religion in terms of statistics and polls and that kind of, I think, kind of a sociological sense might come up. But like I said, I'm not here to really talk in a theological capacity. So if you want to ask me about the Trinity or something like that, you might want to wait till after class, all right? But I'm going to be talking, if I were to break this up into 2 groups, into 2 topics, I would say that for the first half today, we're going to talk about relationships prior to marriage, okay? And sort of what needs to take place prior to marriage. And in particular, I'm going to talk a little bit about what increases and decreases the divorce rate. Okay, that's very important because after the death of a close family member, divorce is the most difficult thing a person can endure. Okay, it's psychologically distressful, it's difficult, that sort of a thing. So it'd be nice to know how we can avoid that. If there's certain characteristics or qualities of relationship which will tend to lead to that, and which will tend to lead away from that. And then in the second half, we're going to talk more about once a person is married and once they're in that permanent relationship, what makes those relationships go well, what are the signs that it's not going well, and how to fix that. So I think this is some information that you'll find useful for life. So, all right, so let's begin. So before we really kind of dive into that, I want to kind of talk just kind of in a more historical sense about a way of looking at the person, a way of looking at family, and how we really see it. And I would say that here in the Western world, by the Western world I mean like Europe, America, North America, South America. Okay, so not really how things are necessarily seen in India or China, that sort of thing, but in the Western world, how we look at the person and how we look at the self and how we look at the family. And essentially, there's been 2 schools of thought that have emerged. Okay, 2 schools of thought. And so we'll talk. First of all, we'll just kind of say how we look at the person. What is a person, okay? And when we look at the original, well, I don't know if we would call it the original view, but the traditional view, okay? The traditional view of the person. And when I say the person, this will relate to family, sexuality, everything like that. Do you have any more of these pens in case this one goes, oh, so if this dies, that's it. Okay, all righty. So on the traditional side, the person, the notion of the person goes all the way back to Plato and Aristotle, okay? And so this notion of the person, it does continue down to this day, okay? But we'll see that at a certain point there was kind of a break-off, okay? And for Plato and Aristotle, they were the ancient Greek philosophers, okay, about 400 BC, around more or less around there. When they defined a person, when they said, what is a human being, okay? They said that a person is a rational being composed of body and soul. Okay, you might hear the word soul and go, oh, that's a very kind of religious concept, but that's not how they saw it. In fact, the soul, the word they used for soul in Greek is psyche, or we write it as psyche. So when we talk about the soul in this sense, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it your consciousness. You can call it, your awareness. In the most simple terms, we can say, when you look at a dead body, it's the thing that's not there anymore. Okay, the process or the consciousness or whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, it's not there anymore. Okay, but a living person has it. And so they said, well, this is what a person is. A person is a rational being composed of body and soul. Now, this is very important because it means if I say, what am I? Okay, I would say I am a body and a soul. Okay, I am a body and a soul, a body and a psyche, a body and a consciousness, whatever you want to call it. There was then I'm going to call this the Age of Enlightenment, okay, view. And so this would have come really out of France in the late 1700s, and then continues down to our own day. And it was a different view of the person, okay? And it really, if you were to trace it back to its origins, it started with Descartes, okay? If you've ever heard of René Descartes, he was one of the inventors of geometry, actually, okay? So he was also a mathematician. But he drew a distinction, okay? And basically said that the person, okay, the person is the soul or the psyche. Okay? And the body belongs to the person. Now, this is a very important distinction, and this distinction ends up having major repercussions down to our own day. Okay, and I'll show you an example of that, all right? But it's very interesting. When you think of your body, okay, do you say, this body is me? It's part of me, or do you say this body belongs to me? All right? That's a very different concept. If you say your body belongs to you, it's like saying this bottle of water belongs to me. It's not part of me. Okay? And so the Age of Enlightenment view was one that tended to separate those two ideas and say that the body is like an instrument of the soul. So your soul is almost like this little guy sitting in a control room, kind of moving the controls, making your body kind of move however you want it to move. Okay? So it's kind of it's a different way. So the traditional view is to say that a person is their body and soul. And this modern view, the Age of Enlightenment, coming from the Age of Enlightenment, is that you are your consciousness and that the body is something that you own, but it's not it's not who you are. It's something you have. Now that's very important because when you look at something like one of the big contentious issues today, okay, this is the big issue, is the transgender identity, okay? Should a person who is born a man, who identifies as a female, be able to use the women's bathroom, okay? And so this is a big thing that's all over the news. I'm sure you've seen this, okay? And so the question one would ask was, well, what's the right way to see that, And when you have someone who's born a man but identifies as a woman, well, how you feel about that issue, or I shouldn't say how you feel about it, but how you interpret that issue is going to depend on what view of the person you have, okay? If a person is their body and their soul, then they would say, well, if you were born a male, you have male body parts, then you're a male. if you feel female, then there's a dysphoric kind of a psychological issue going on, right? And so for someone at this viewpoint would say, well, that's like saying I feel like I'm a chicken. Well, you feel like you're a chicken, but you're not a chicken, And so they would kind of see that as like, well, no, you can't, if you're a man, you're a man. That you can't, no surgery, nothing's going to change that. This viewpoint is going to say, well, I am what I feel I am. Okay, I am my consciousness, and if I feel like a female, and my body is something that belongs to me, then to alter the body to match the soul would be perfectly fine. It'd be like saying, I'm like the kind of guy that likes to drive a truck, but I ended up, somebody gave me this little Prius or something, and I'd say, well, this car isn't me. I need a different car, and so you would switch the car to get one that fit who you are. Okay. So you can see, when you look at the big arguments today and the big fights in America about, whether someone can be transgendered and if there's rights associated with that, or whether a person says, no, that's if you're a man, you're a man, if you're a woman, you're a woman. It depends on what you're seeing is these two viewpoints in conflict, okay? The traditional Western viewpoint and then the modern viewpoint, which came out of the Age of Enlightenment. It's very simple. That's why people don't agree, because they're defining the person differently, okay? I think that obviously being in modern times, we hear a lot about this, we learn a lot about this, okay? It's kind of at the forefront, gay marriage, transgenderism, these sorts of things. It's at the forefront of what everybody understands. But I'm going to focus on family and sexuality from more of this perspective, okay? The traditional perspective, and it's based on this concept of natural law, okay? And so we're going to talk a little bit here about natural law. And what we mean by natural law, okay, is to determine right or wrong. You can say good or bad, however you want it. Right or wrong as determined by reason, okay? So don't let the term natural law confuse you. You might see the word natural and then think of nature. Okay, and you'll see nature does have a play in it, but natural law is what's wrong, right or wrong as determined by reason. Okay, so for example, and this might be kind of confused, but I think I can break this down. It's actually a very simple concept. Murder is wrong, right? Right? We all know that. Okay, murder is wrong. Okay, so let's talk about some reasons why murder is wrong. Okay, so somebody give me a reason. Why is murder wrong? One at a time, guys. I can't call on everyone at once, so relax. Okay, why is murder wrong?
Because you're ending another person's conscious life.
Okay, you're taking away another person's consciousness. You're snuffing them out. Okay, all right. Okay, why else? Why is it wrong to murder?
The Bible says so.
The Bible says so. A person can say that. It's a violation of the 5th commandment. That's right. Okay. Why else? There's some kind of real obvious answers that you might not, I'll say it and you'll be like, well, duh. Okay. Can you think of like a real obvious reason why it's wrong to murder? It causes pain. Yeah, absolutely. Hello?
Against the law.
It's against the law. Yeah, that's kind of a weird thing. You wouldn't normally think of that, like, well, man, I really want to get that guy, but I don't want to break the law. But it's true. It's against the law. Okay. So there are these kind of funny things. But you see, when you say why it's wrong to murder, there are a lot of different answers. Okay. To say that it's wrong to murder because it's against the law. What kind of law are we talking about? Well, that's penal law, right? Okay. Criminal law, right? It's against that law. If we say the Bible says it's wrong, that's divine law, okay, or law of faith, right? The natural law is different, okay? The natural law said that it approaches it with reason, and it says, okay, well, what if murder was okay? What if murder was okay? Like, what would happen? What would this world look like? Huh? If murder was like totally allowed, what would the world look like?
Everyone guns